Good morning, everybody, and can I begin by thanking Kieran Cannon for the invite. I realised this was going to be a different occasion when it came via Twitter, which I think is quite unorthodox. I'm principal of the Stephen Peirce Foundation. I've been advised by colleagues this morning to explain what that actually means. The Stephen Peirce Foundation, that's our front door. But actually, we have 6 schools, and the children's ages range between 3 to 18, the occasional 19-year-old. And we're based mainly in and around Cambridge. So I'm effectively the chief executive of the 6 schools. Something about the fact we're based in Cambridge. The location really, really matters to us. We were originally founded in 1881 as a sister school to the Peirce School. We were the Peirce School for Girls. It was at the time when girls' education was in the rise in England. And the fact we're based in the city centre means we may have a small front door, but we're surrounded by the most glorious colleges like King's College. It's an amazing location. And the other point I'd make about being in Cambridge is not only do we have the inspiration of scholarship from the university, we're located beside Silicon Fen, which is an entrepreneurial powerhouse. You might also be interested to know that our school inspired St. Trinian's, which I think is an important fact of history, which became national news last year when we actually announced that in addition to having boys in our pre-preps, that's age 3 to 7, our sixth form, that's 16 to 18, we're now going to take boys all the way through the school, which was, as you can see, it made a national splash in all the newspapers. They don't look like that. I mean, that's very misleading. I feel I have to state this because I was very interested in listening to fellow panellists and speakers last night with a sense that in some ways we've compromised the future of young people. And I think it's really important that we have an aspiration for them and that this is a very simple one. We have to believe for them that our future is greater than our past. How are we doing it in our school? Let me introduce the learning wheel. This apparently simple wheel is actually the fruits of 4 or 5 years of work by educators across all the schools about what we believe in and what we think matters in education. And as you can see, as was actually talked about very well last night, at the very centre of our learning experience is the learner. And it's about them and about their growth. And what I'd like to do is, rather than teasing this apart in a rather dry way, I'd like to share with you an animation that we created last year to explain, I hope in layman's terms, because it was actually for our parents, what our school actually believes in. And this is our animation.
Education is a really interesting thing because we all went to school, we all have a view on it. And inevitably our view is influenced by our own school experiences. And I experience this a lot when I meet with parents who have strong recollections of their school days, either happy or sad, where they remember their best teacher, they remember afternoons out on the sports field, and they have certain key recollections. But it's very much looking back to the past rather than looking to the future. It's about the education that was right for them then, rather than what we believe is the education that's right for tomorrow. And this is a very interesting conversation to have with them because the point we need to make really is that education didn't just happen in that box called school. Actually, they are where they are today because they learned probably far more than they thought because in many respects they're obviously learning for life. And in a sense we're taking that to the next level because that's what we're saying to our students, that you're not just learning for the here and now, you're learning for tomorrow. How that learning looks is obviously very, very important. Because the easy way to look at it is to actually look at a child as a series of subjects. And the reason we do that, frankly, is because we can measure those subjects more easily than we could actually measure a more integrated approach to learning. And that's understandable because, after all, they've got to get their exams, they've got to get their passports to the next stage of their lives. But what that passport at the moment doesn't demonstrate is, actually, are they creative in a way that's not just confined by the creative arts? Are they able to work with others in the team and actually within that team bring a sense of purpose, a dynamism and an ability to help others be creative? It's very difficult to measure those things. And therefore the passport, as far as we're concerned, needs to have additional stamps which comes from the educational experience they have throughout the Stephen Peirce Foundation. So where we start, it's very, very simple. Where we start is with the child. Don't start with the standardised boxes, but actually look at the child, look at what they need, the challenges they need, and then ensure that they can make that journey as successfully as possible. And because of the way our school is structured, we can do that really, really well. We want to ensure that they have a range of experiences which is about them and their personal development. It's actually ensuring that they're aware that there are obligations in life, and it's not just about me. Having said we start with a student, it's about starting with the student but making the student realise that there is a big wide world around them and to be mindful of their role within it. We also feel very strongly aligned to that citizenship. I know that's a word that's tossed around and it's probably a word that gets tick boxed quite a lot, but citizenship does matter. I mean, we live in very interesting times, quite challenging times, and they need to be aware of that because they need to be mindful of what happens around them, what's happening in the world. And I'm not just talking national citizenship, I'm talking global citizenship because they're interconnected with others across the globe, which moves me on actually to the digital world that they live in, because the digital world really is what has, I think, been the revolutionary force over the last 10 to 20 years. It's said that fundamentals haven't changed in education, and actually I would agree with that. You've still got to be able to read, you've still got to be able to write, you've still got to be able to add up. All of these things, of course, are important. But I think there's now been added to learning another layer where their world is very different from the world I grew up in. Because what may happen on the other side of the world could well have a bearing on what happens here. And it's quite likely that a lot of our students will be working on the other side of the world, leaving aside the interconnectedness in other ways. And the digital technology makes that possible without you going to the other side of the world. So as a school, we made a really big decision a couple of years ago that we felt we had to take this head on and not try and ban digital technology because we didn't want the big bad world coming in. We actually felt that let's put it in their hands and let's work with them in a collaborative way. We really do understand that it opens up a world to them that is very exciting, but also they need help and guidance navigating that, because this is my particular excitement about it actually, that world out there, I think it's fantastic. So it's not a question that they start at 3, they end at 18, clap hands together, job done, off they go. Because any school who views their function in that way is actually neglecting the sort of the core reason for children being at school. And that reason is to ensure that when they move on to the rest of their lives, they're equipped for the rest of their lives, because their lives are going to be exciting in ways that we can only dream of. And they'll have opportunities that we can only dream of, because they're so able, they're so bright, and as long as they're also so giving in terms of their social responsibility, I think they're the kind of people that you want to have around in this world today.
I had an iPhone put in front of me and I had to speak for 14 minutes, so it was quite terrifying. But anyway, that in essence is what we're about. And I've put this up here, not because I want to show off, but I just want to make a point that what we believe in has been given credence by an external body called the Independent Schools Inspectorate. Our school, it's been independent, it's been a direct grant grammar school, it's now independent again. And in March, we had 13 inspectors, head teachers, senior teachers from other independent schools come and look at us. And you can read for yourself that they were actually quite blown away by the ambition of what we're doing. And what is particularly relevant for this morning is the third bullet point. The move towards digital learning is central to the Foundation's vision. The infamous iPad. Can I just say, following up from last night, 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember exactly now when we made the decision to introduce it, our infrastructure wasn't right. We didn't have the density and coverage for our wireless. We did not have the right skill set for our IT support people, but we did have IT support people, and we did not give enough training to our staff. If I were to wind back the clock, I would do it differently. We've now put that right. And what I'd like to share with you is actually, thank you to Evelyn, she's already covered this for me really, the benefits of iPads. We've seen it very, very clearly in terms of pedagogy, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. I'd add communication and eventually curation, which we'll come on to. But I just wanted to share with you, I'm not expecting you to vote on this, I'm not as brave as Evelyn, but I want to share with you some of the work our pupils have been involved in. The first is something called the Phoenix Project. Year 9 is 13, 14-year-olds. We have a lot of cross-curricular work as part of our integrated approach, and this was a project given to them to redevelop a site in Cambridge. Cambridge is a very cramped city, so a lot of people want to be there. It's a very wealthy city, and these students were encouraged to think how they would go about redeveloping a site. But look at what I'd like you to look at is the tools they're using to do this. And as you can see there, literally the iPad is a tool, and that is all it is. The iPad also unlocks creativity, and for the music department, it's been truly transformational. Again, I've got an example from year 9. This is something that in the past you couldn't have done unless you had a multimedia studio. With an iPad, you can do this and do something quite amazing. This is quite a sinister piece of work by year 9s. Same way again, I assure you. Scary. They wrote the music using GarageBand, and obviously they were able to integrate it with the filming. They do this effortlessly, as other teachers who use iPads will know what I'm talking about. They could not have done that before, so that is transformational, and I believe that was very, very creative. Finally, for perhaps parents in the audience of younger children, Puppet Pals. I don't know if you come across the app Puppet Pals. It's just a way of sort of animating an idea, a concept, a story. It's gone down from the senior school into the junior school. Year 6 is 10-year-olds, 9, 10-year-olds. This is a French piece. They'd learned some vocabulary. They're encouraged to do some Puppet Pal work on it. I've been told the French is entirely inaccurate, but if you can give them a break, they are only 10.
J'adore Paris parce que de pain au chocolat.
Nous allons à New York en bateau.
On y va, on y va, on y va.
J'adore New York, j'adore New York.
Je n'aime pas New York.
Nous allons à Espagne en avion.
On y va, on y va, on y va.
Je n'aime pas Espagne parce que c'est ennuyeux.
J'adore Espagne parce que c'est super.
Au revoir.
Bless them. So, so what does this mean? We feel actually we've let a genie out of the bottle. We didn't know what the consequences were going to be, the unknown unknowns of having digital technology as a tool in your learning. What has become very apparent is the power of it, not just for these use of apps. That's very much just one dimension of what we do. What we're beginning to realise is the content is king concept absolutely matters. And we're very keen as a school to ensure that the content that we direct our students toward is of a standard that they deserve. This is just an example of some of the iTunes U courses that have been created by colleagues at the school. iTunes U, for those of you who are not familiar with them, it's an opportunity to put your resources in one place, to have links to a range of resources. It's really enriched in learning ecosystem. So instead of giving out lots of worksheets, you can actually do things in a more interactive and engaging way. We're finding that our older students like this way of learning. At the moment, we're also looking at iBooks, which are a bit more ambitious and give you more opportunities to do even more extraordinary things with the resource. It's time intensive for teachers. So there is a big decision you have to make. Do you want to be a publishing house as a school? I've written a blog about that recently because we're beginning to have those conversations. Curation as well. You need to know where you're storing things. That's the other big C, actually, to add to the others we were talking about earlier. The other challenge, and this is for me the most exciting part of what we're learning, is that you can look at space in a different way. One of our earlier speakers said that they're looking at the library and what the library's for. And a few years ago, we thought, actually, we don't need a library because eventually they'll download all their books. But then we thought, what is the concept of a library? The concept actually is very powerful. It means something more than storage of books. So what you've got here is an insight into our junior school and pre-prep library. That's for learners aged 3 to 11. What you haven't got, unfortunately, is the entrance where it says Once Upon a Time. It's quite a charming and inspiring area. And it's about the power of the story. That chair in the middle is the most popular seat in the junior school. And now there's actually a whole load of beanbags. This is when it was first created. And adjacent to this room is the story courtyard. And please notice the signifier there of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Because we want them to value the imagination, value the world of fiction, value the story, and it's about helping them understand values in an age where it's quite disjointed, I think, for them. And if you notice there on the right, it's and they lived happily ever after, so it all brings it together. Senior school library has a different concept. It's the Cabinet of Curiosities. We actually had to boot the staff out of the staff room. Now, that's a very brave move on my part, because staff know that the staff room is their haven, but we've actually given them a lovely room elsewhere and a lovely coffee machine, so they're actually quite happy. But the actual room, the cabinet, it gives us an opportunity to bring together artifacts with books, with the students, with their iPads, with access to iBooks, to have a really enriched opportunity to engage with the world around them, so they're not confined by the physical space. So, for example, at the moment, it's World War I. We're commemorating World War I. And yes, your eyes do not deceive you. That is a trench at the back. Here it is close up. There is a trench in the library. And aligned to this, there are various other artifacts in the room. So, what does that mean, really? It means actually that we're in an age, a revolutionary age, an opportunity to think differently about how our learners learn. And I'd like to invite you, if you wish, to have a look at our spflearning.com website, where teachers are sharing their ideas. And it's not just about digital learning. So, for example, our head of English, she's quite rightly saying they have to learn to memorize. You know, the internet and Google does not replace a good memory when you, for example, if you want to recite a poem, it really does matter that you can memorize it. So we've got a whole range of teachers talking about their teaching, about learning, and we're very excited about that. And I've got an orange light, I've beaten the reds, so I feel very proud of myself. Just to say, we're very excited about the future. We think that if you integrate digital technology, if you invest in it and invest in your teachers, and actually assume that everybody is part of a learning community, it's not just the students, it's the staff as well, then you have the most exciting possibilities for the future. Thank you very much.